Inside ADX Florence, America's most secure Supermax prison, there's a place in America where silence is a weapon, where doors weigh 1,000 pounds, where men who terrified entire cities now spend 23 hours a day inside concrete boxes, staring at walls designed to stop even the idea of escape. They call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies, the prison where the United States sends the people it fears most, not to punish them, but to bury them alive in time. Cut to black. A single sound, the click of a steel bolt sliding into place. This is a story of ADX Florence, America's most secure, most notorious, and most controversial federal supermax prison. But behind the walls of this fortress is a secret few ever talk about. Some inmates become monsters because of what they did. Others become monsters because of what happened to them inside these walls. And tonight, we're going to open those walls and step inside. Before we step inside the most dangerous prison in America, before we walk through the steel doors that hold terrorists, cartel bosses, and men the government calls uncontrollable, I want you, right now, to do something that helps these investigations reach more people. If you love deep dive crime documentaries, if you want more exposes on prisons, gangs, and the dark corners of the justice system, then hit that like button, share this video with someone who thinks they can handle this story, and subscribe so you never miss the next chapter in our series. Because tonight, we are going inside a fortress built to break the human mind, a place so secure, escape isn't just impossible, it's unthinkable, a place where silence becomes a weapon, and isolation becomes a slow, psychological death. This is the world of ADX Florence, America's most secure Supermax prison. And once we step through those gates, there's no going back. The prison built for the uncontrollable, nearly 100 miles south of Denver, surrounded by desert mountains and silence, sits a prison unlike any other on Earth. ADX Florence, a $60 million steel labyrinth built after a wave of violence inside the U.S. prison system. During the 1980s and 90s, gangs inside federal penitentiaries were declaring war. Inmates were stabbing officers, murdering rivals, and coordinating hits from inside their cells. The U.S. government was running out of options. The Bureau of Prisons needed a place where the most dangerous, most violent, most escape-prone inmates could be locked away permanently. A place where even talking to another human could be controlled. And so, in 1994, they built ADX Florence, a facility the government itself describes as a clean version of hell. While most federal prisons are designed around movement, cafeterias, yards, workshops, ADX is designed around one thing: zero, human, contact. There is no cafeteria, no group yard, no common areas. Every single meal is pushed through a small slot in the door. Every shower is taken in a locked booth. Every step outside the cell is controlled by a team of officers in full riot gear. Inmates here don't serve time. They disappear into it. Who gets sent to ADX? ADX isn't for normal criminals. It's for people the federal government considers too dangerous for any other prison, even maximum security. Here's the unofficial criteria: inmates who attack guards or staff in other prisons, gang leaders who ordered murders from inside, terrorists whose names dominate headlines, escape artists who broke out of high-security prisons before, high-value inmates the government can't risk being kidnapped or killed. But it's not just what they did on the outside. It's what they did inside prison walls that seal their fate. One former warden explained it perfectly. You don't end up at ADX because of your crime. You end up here because you can't be controlled. The design of total isolation. Each ADX cell is engineered to break one thing: connection. The rooms are 7 feet by 12 feet, smaller than a parking space. The bed, stool, and desk are all poured concrete, making them impossible to move or weaponize. But the most chilling feature is the window, a 4-inch slit, angled upward, so inmates can see only one thing: sky, no horizon, no land, no people, no way to measure distance or direction, a psychological design meant to disorient. Even the recreation yards, called dog run by inmates, are just small concrete pens with a metal grate above. No grass, no open space, just enough room to pace in circles for 1 hour a day. One inmate once said, "They didn't design ADX to punish your body. They designed it to punish your mind." The sound of absolute silence. Most prisons are loud, constant yelling, doors clanking, chaos around every corner. ADX? ADX is silent. The walls are thick concrete. Doors are sealed tight. Every movement is controlled. Entire housing units can go days without a single human voice echoing down the hall. Former inmates say the silence becomes its own kind of noise, a pressure in the skull, like something is squeezing your brain from the inside. Others report hearing phantom voices, a sign of serious psychological stress. And that brings us to one of the darkest truths about ADX Florence. Even the strongest minds begin to break. The psychological toll. Psychologists argue that long-term solitary confinement can cause hallucinations, memory loss, paranoia, self-harm, extreme anxiety, insomnia, loss of identity, and full-blown psychosis. But at ADX, inmates aren't in solitary for weeks or months. Some are here for decades. The United Nations has repeatedly condemned the prison as inhumane. Former wardens defend it as necessary to keep the most dangerous criminals from killing again. But the question remains, does extreme control create safety, or does it create something even worse? Transition, the first inmate story. To understand ADX Florence, you have to hear the stories of the men who lived inside it. Some are monsters, some are victims. Most are both, shaped by violence long before they ever saw these walls. Our first story is about an inmate who learned the hard way that ADX isn't just a prison. It's a pressure cooker. The man who fought the walls. To understand the psychological gravity of ADX Florence, you have to examine one inmate, a man who entered these walls believing that nothing could break him. For privacy and legal protections, we'll call him Inmate R. He wasn't a terrorist. He wasn't a cartel commander. He wasn't a high-profile political target. He was something the Bureau of Prisons fears even more. A man who refused to be controlled. The transfer. Inmate R's journey to ADX started long before he ever set foot in Colorado. He had spent years bouncing from one high-security prison to another. USP Atlanta, USP Beaumont, USP Pollock. Everywhere he went, violence followed. He stabbed a gang lieutenant who ordered him to pay protection money. He assaulted a correctional officer who tried to shake down his cell. He orchestrated a multi-state drug pipeline from inside the walls, communicating through coded letters and visitors. The feds had seen enough. When a confidential informant claimed he was plotting an escape, supposedly using a guard as leverage, the decision was made instantly. ADX Florence wasn't just the next step. It was a final step. Once you're transferred here, you don't go back. Arrival at the fortress. When the transport bus crossed the final checkpoint, inmates are expected the usual intake protocol. Medical exam, paperwork, property inventory. But ADX is not a normal prison. The moment he stepped out, he was greeted by a fully armored team. Shields, black helmets, and visors hiding every face. Not for intimidation, not for theatrics, for control. They strip-searched him, scanned him, documented every scar, tattoo, and mark on his body. They inspected his eyelids, the soles of his feet, even inside his mouth. Standard protocol to ensure nothing, not even a razor blade, could enter the facility. He was then escorted down a long, bluish-gray hallway known among staff as the airlock. Door after door sealed shut behind him. Each one sounded heavier than the last. By the time he reached his cell, he had passed through 14 layers of security. And then he heard it, the sound that every ADX inmate remembers forever. The door closing for the first time. Day one inside the box. Inmate R's cell was a concrete coffin, 7 by 12 feet, bolted furniture, a shower operated from outside, and a small window slit that let in a knife of light. The first day, he was calm. He'd been in solitary before. He knew the drill. But ADX isn't solitary. It's solitary redefined. There is no guard walking the tier. No sound from neighboring cells. No meal hall noise. No TV chatter from down the range. Just silence. A silence so thick it presses on you, like the air is heavier inside this place. The first crack. By the end of week 1, something shifted. Not panic, not fear, agitation. He started pacing the cell clockwise, counterclockwise. He began talking to himself. Sometimes he whispered. Sometimes he barked out full conversations. Officers monitoring the cameras saw the first crack appear. In his reports, one guard wrote, "Inmate appears stable but shows signs of mental strain. Noticeable talking, pacing, repetitive movements." In a normal prison, these behaviors are common, but in ADX, they are warning signs, early indicators of looming psychological collapse. The breaking point. Month 1 became month 2. The silence sharpened into something painful. At night, inmate swore he could hear voices. Not guards, not inmates. Voices that weren't real. Some nights he would scream into the dark. "Shut up! Shut up!" Other nights he slammed his fist against the door until his knuckles split open. He begged for medical evaluation. He begged for someone to talk to. He begged for anything. But inside ADX, everything is regulated, even suffering. The outburst. Finally, it happened. At exactly 3:14 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, inmate lost control. The cameras show him pacing, mumbling, then stopping suddenly, like something snapped. He charged the door and began slamming his head into it, over and over. When officers arrived, he was bleeding from his forehead, still screaming at invisible voices. The restraint team entered the cell in full gear, shields, helmets, gloves. They cuffed him, strapped him, and escorted him to the medical unit for mandatory psychological assessment. The verdict? Deterioration due to extreme isolation. But because of his violent behavior, he was placed right back in solitary, this time under even tighter restrictions. The quiet realization. After the outburst, something changed in him. He didn't yell anymore. He didn't pace. He didn't argue with the walls. He barely moved. For the first time in his life, inmate understood what ADX Florence truly was. Not a prison, a machine, one designed to remove a man's connections before it removes the man himself. The 23-hour cycle. A day inside America's harshest cell. Inside ADX Florence, time moves differently. Minutes stretch, days blur, and the only constant is routine, a rigid, suffocating 23-hour cycle designed to control every second an inmate is awake. To an outsider, the routine looks simple. To the men living inside these concrete boxes, it's a psychological marathon. To understand ADX, you must understand the day, because each day feels identical. And identical days break people. Wake up inside the box. There is no morning alarm inside ADX. No human voice calling out count time. Just silence, and the faint glow of the rising sun that creeps through the narrow window slit, illuminating only the upper corner of the room. Most inmates don't sleep well. The concrete bed, the fluorescent lights that never fully turn off, the echoes of their own thoughts. Inmate described the mornings like this. You don't wake up in ADX. You just restart. Breakfast through the slot. At around 6 a.m., breakfast arrives. No conversation. No eye contact. Just a tray with powdered eggs, oatmeal, a piece of fruit, and milk. Everything is placed through the Sally Port food slot, a small rectangular opening in the door used for meals, medication, and sometimes even communication. But the slot is more than a feeding device. It's a reminder that even food is a controlled interaction. Count time. At 7:30 a.m., the first count happens. Guards move silently down the tier, checking faces through reinforced glass. Inmates must stand at the door, hand visible, to verify they're present and alive. This happens at least 5 times a day. In most prisons, count are loud, chaotic, and rushed. But at DX, you hear nothing. Just boots and the soft click of a pen against paper. 23 hours of isolation. Here's the truth most people don't understand. Inmates at ADX don't serve life sentences. They serve lifestyle sentences, trapped inside a loop where nothing changes. No job assignments. No communal dining. no yard with other inmates, no library browsing, no general phone access. Their entire world is roughly 7 feet wide, 12 feet long, made of concrete, viewed through a slot, governed by silence. Inside this box, every hour is self-contained. Every day repeats itself. Even reading becomes an act of survival, the only escape that doesn't involve a breakdown. But not all inmates read. Some stare at the walls until their eyes burn. Some pace. Some talk to themselves. Some meditate. Some scream. And some do nothing. The recreation hour. Every inmate at ADX gets 1 hour a day outside the cell. But outside doesn't mean what you think. Recreation at ADX means a concrete box with 20-foot-high walls, a metal cage ceiling, no trees, no grass, no view of the horizon, no interaction with anyone else. Inmates call it the dog run. Some walk in circles, some stretch, some stare at the patch of sky above. A few try to talk through the vents or drains, hoping another inmate might hear them. But conversation is forbidden and monitored. If you try too hard to make contact, you lose your recreation privileges. The black box. Whenever an inmate leaves a cell, even for a shower, a medical appointment, or a legal visit, they're placed in a device known as the black box. It's a hard plastic restraint that locks over the handcuffs, preventing wrist movement. Once the black box goes on, the inmate's hands become immobile, unable to twist, pull, or manipulate anything. This is standard at ADX. It's not punishment. It's protocol. The idea is simple. Control the hands. Control the body. Control the situation. The shower booth. Showers at ADX happen inside a cage. Inmates are escorted, restrained, and locked inside a booth with surveillance outside. The water temperature is fixed. The pressure is weak. The time limit is strict. And because inmates can't control when the shower turns on or off, many describe it as cleaning the body, not the soul. The art of control. ADX Florence is engineered around one philosophy. Control everything. Permit nothing. Predict everyone. Every door is controlled remotely. Every movement is pre-planned. Every inmate is evaluated constantly. The staff knows who is agitated, who is stable, who is slipping, who is about to break. For some inmates, the routine becomes bearable, predictable, even comforting. For others, it becomes a countdown clock toward collapse. Humanity in small doses. In an environment built to crush connection, the smallest interactions become monumental. A guard saying 2 words. Here's mail. A nurse making eye contact. A chaplain asking if they want a Bible. A mental health worker checking for signs of self-harm. Tiny moments, barely exchanges, but to a man kept in silence, they feel like full conversations. Some inmates cling to these crumbs. Others reject them. Inmate R? He tried to pretend he didn't need them, but deep down, he did, more than he realized. The night grind. Nights inside ADX are the hardest. There are no sounds, except the hum of ventilation or the occasional thud of someone hitting their door in frustration. The mind wanders. Memories return. Regrets become louder than the silence. Some nights, inmates stay awake until 4 a.m., not because they're restless, but because they fear falling asleep. When you wake up in total isolation, your brain needs a moment to remember where you are, and that moment hurts every time. Inmate R once wrote in a letter, "The day ends, the day begins, but I don't. I just continue existing." The most dangerous man in America. Inside the minds of ADX Florence's infamous inmates, there's a reason ADX Florence exists. A reason the government built a fortress so secure that not even a breath is unmonitored. A reason the walls are thicker, the doors heavier, the silence sharper. It was built for men who didn't just break the law, but men who broke systems, men whose crimes shook countries, men who killed without hesitation, men who led empires from inside prison walls. These are the inmates who turned ADX into a legend, the operational philosophy. To understand ADX's inmate population, You must understand the philosophy behind it. This prison doesn't house ordinary criminals. It houses threats, men whose continued existence poses national-level risks. There are 5 categories that send men here. Terrorists, responsible for mass casualties. Cartel kings, capable of orchestrating violence from behind bars. Espionage operatives, high-level intelligence threats. Escape artists, individuals who have broken out of other maximum security prisons. Uncontrollables, inmates too violent to be placed anywhere else. And within these walls, each man becomes a ghost, isolated from the world, known to most only by the damage they've done. The Terror Wing. The Range 13 corridor, often called H-Bomb Row by staff, is where America hides its most infamous terrorists. Inside these cells, men responsible for mass casualty bombings, men who coordinated attacks against U.S. citizens, men who still inspire global followers. Each door is identical, each cell isolated, each inmate kept under extreme surveillance. One former officer described the experience. It feels like walking past history's darkest chapters, one door at a time. What makes these inmates dangerous isn't just what they did, it's what they still could do if given the chance. Letters, codes, contacts, radical influence. Even a simple message could create chaos outside. That's why communication is filtered, reviewed, redacted, or blocked entirely. In ADX, silence isn't just punishment, it's containment. The cartel commanders, cartel leaders in prison at ADX control armies larger than some governments. Even from behind bars, they have foot soldiers, drug routes, informants, corrupt officials, money that moves silently. Some cartel bosses ordered killings from inside prisons in Mexico, Colombia, even the U.S. ADX was designed to break that chain. Here, they can't make phone calls without permission. They can't send unsupervised letters. They can't meet in groups. They can't pass messages. Their power shrinks to the size of their cell, but their mindset doesn't. One officer said, "Their eyes tell you, if I wasn't in here, you'd be gone." These men operate on a different level, where violence is strategy, not impulse. And ADX is the only place that can contain them. The spies who knew too much. A surprising number of ADX inmates aren't mobsters or gang leaders. They are spies. Some work for foreign governments. Some were double agents. Some were caught passing classified info. Some were involved in operations, so sensitive their files will never be public. These inmates are dangerous not because of violence, but because of knowledge, secrets, contacts, technology, geopolitical leverage. One slip, one message, one coded phrase could compromise national security. In ADX, isolation is not punishment. It's protection, not for the inmate, for the country, the escape artists. Some men inside ADX earn their place not through violence, but through boldness. Escapes, multiple escapes, legendary escapes. Inmates who bent steel with makeshift tools, cut bars using smuggled blades, disguised themselves as guards, built dummy bodies to fool count time, crawled through air vents, broke out of prisons thought to be escape-proof. One inmate even escaped 3 maximum security prisons in a row. At ADX, the philosophy is simple. If you've escaped anywhere else, you won't escape here. Ever. The uncontrollables. Then there are the men who don't fit any category except one. Violence. Pure, unfiltered violence. Some inmates are so unpredictable, so explosive, that no prison can keep them stable. These men have attacked staff without warning, murdered cellmates in seconds, created weapons from toothbrushes, staples, or metal chips, bitten through restraints, fought entire extraction teams. At ADX, they are kept alone, monitored closely, and handled with military precision. Some guards privately call them the Storms, because they hit hard and without warning. Inmate R's first contact with a legend. Inside this world of monsters and masterminds, Inmate R encountered something unexpected, someone he knew of, an inmate who had been locked down for over a decade, a legend in the criminal underworld, a man whose name he had heard whispered in multiple prisons. We won't name him here, but his reputation was enough to intimidate entire yards. And here, he was just another ghost behind steel. One morning, during count, inmate R heard him call out, "Stay strong, youngster. This place ain't forever." It was the first real human voice he'd heard in months, and it changed everything. For the first time, inmate R realized he wasn't surrounded by prisoners. He was surrounded by stories, each more dangerous than the last. The cost of containing evil. For every dangerous inmate, there must be staff capable of handling them. Few people talk about the mental toll on officers. Never turning your back, always watching hands, always expecting violence. Knowing the men you guard have killed before, knowing they may try again. It's a job that ages people. A former officer said, "The inmates aren't the only ones imprisoned by ADX. We are too, just on the other side of the door." Dark pride. Most inmates break. Some adapt, but a rare few embrace the darkness. They view their isolation as proof of their power. They wear their ADX sentence like a badge of honor. To them, being placed in America's most secure prison isn't punishment. It's validation. Proof that they were too dangerous, too smart, too influential for any other place. These men don't fear ADX. They believe ADX fears them. And so, as the lights dim behind the concrete walls of ADX Florence, as the steel doors lock one last time for the night, and the world's most dangerous men lie alone in their cells, we step back into the free world, a world without reinforced glass, without airlocks, without the constant hum of surveillance. But the echoes of this place, they follow you. They cling to your thoughts the way the cold air clings to the corridors in Florence, Colorado. Because ADX isn't just a prison. It's a message, a warning, a reminder of how thin the line truly is between order and chaos, between freedom and confinement, between sanity and the slow unraveling of a human mind. Some of the men inside ADX will never see the sun rise without razor wire cutting the sky. Some will never touch another human being again. Some are locked away not for what they did, but for what might happen if the world were to ever let them out. And after everything we've seen tonight, after walking through the silence, the steel, the shadows, I have one question for you. What does justice look like in a place where hope cannot survive? If this investigation opened your eyes, if it made you think, question, or feel something you didn't expect, then do one thing for me. One thing that truly helps these stories reach the world. Hit the like button. Share this documentary with someone who needs to see the truth for themselves. And subscribe to join us as we uncover more hidden corners of America's most violent prisons, its forgotten inmates, and the systems built to contain them. Until the next story, stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, some walls aren't built to keep people in. They're built to keep the rest of us out.